Hello, citizens of the internet. My name is AJ, and I am the A to Z artist. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time stopping by. Today we are going to be doing something kind of interesting. It was kind of my idea, although there are similar stuff throughout the internet. But I had this idea of combining two of my big passions. I love Disney. My family and I go to Disney World, we try to at least once a year anyway. And I am also a huge Star Wars fan. So I thought it would be really cool to go through and combine these two elements. Take Disney characters and turn them into Star Wars characters. I tried to do a video like this earlier. Probably it was my first video idea ever, about probably 2 months ago. Everything I had got corrupted. I was able to save the images, thankfully, but the actual video is just gone. I could not use a single aspect of my video. So I decided to go with episode 2, quote unquote, but I thought I'd show you some of episode 1's characters. Well, I'll give you a brief snippet of their story, but episode 1 was going to be dealing with Toy Story. And so I picked 3 characters, Woody, Buzz, and Bo Peep, and I changed them all into Star Wars characters. What if those 3 characters were in Star Wars? I created full stories for them and narrated and everything. So here are those. Today's episode is going to focus on a different property from Disney, and I think it would be kind of cool to keep these all in like a shared universe. I'm not going to obviously tell any stories outside of this, although with this property being public domain outside of Disney, it might be kind of fun to do my own kind of comic book take on it. I'm kind of debating that through. But anyway, so this property that I'm dealing with today is going to be Aladdin. Aladdin was one of my favorite Disney movies. It came out when I was very, very little. It was part of the Disney Renaissance. If you know Disney, you know Aladdin, probably. It's one of their most popular movies, remade into live action. And incidentally, a lot of the live action costumes and characters, and just the way they took a look at the world of Aladdin, was kind of where I drew most of my inspiration. I know the live action movie was kind of hit or miss with people, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked the take on it. And Blue Will Smith is not as bad as people give him credit for. So, without further ado, I kind of want to get into the story. I had a lot of fun crafting these. This is probably one of my favorite episodes that I've made to date. This video took a long time to make, just the design and development of these characters and just the storytelling aspects of it. Took a little while. So I hope you enjoy. If you do, be sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of videos where I do a lot of nerdy, kind of fun stuff like this, a lot of storytelling. So if you like this video, I want to get into some more of my kind of storytelling style, be sure to hit subscribe and hit comment as well. Leave a comment, because I always leave a question of the week. I'll talk about that at the end of the video, but without further ado, let's get into it. G3N13, called Genie by the members of the Peddler's pirate crew, is by far the oldest crew member. He was built at least 1,000 years before as an early prototype of the Proxy Droid, a line of droids capable of producing detailed, convincing cloaking holograms. The Peddler, a black market merchant and leader of a pirate crew, found Genie in the heart of a crashed ship on a distant planet. Genie had been badly damaged and knocked offline, but his owner was still alive and tried to kill the young pirate with a red lightsaber. The Peddler, though, fired the first shot. Even at his early age, having just started as a pirate, the Peddler had heard enough of the wars ravaging the galaxy to know of the conflict between Jedi and Sith, and knew that any artifacts from either would fetch a high price in the black market. His crew took to salvaging the ship, and the peddler took it upon himself to repair the G3 unit personally. After all, no one wanted to buy a broken down old droid. After repairing the former training droid, it attacked and nearly killed the peddler, but he managed to shut it down. A droid that could fight? That only raised the price. The peddler had a problem, though. He needed to do away with that murderous personality, but to do so meant possibly deleting the droid's entire memory bank and the combative skills at his disposal. The peddler managed to build a lamplight bypass, a program that would suppress his previous personality and replace it with a modified protocol droid personality more tailor-made to serving the peddler. The process still suppressed some of Jeannie's memories, and the conflicting ideals led to some unforeseen personality gimmicks. Bursting into songs, strange references, creating these bombastic and over-the-top holograms, he loved to enter the room in a plume of smoke that he created with his own holograms. But the Genie's combat skills, used to train fledgling Sith, and his ability to project holograms were unaffected. The peddler never sold Genie. He claimed that no one ever offered him a high enough price for the droid. But his crew wondered if he'd grown a soft spot for it. Nevertheless, Genie became a member of the peddler's crew, and while its former life was far behind it, some nights, when everyone else is asleep and Genie is left alone to his own devices, he will start to sing songs long ago lost to the passage of time. The fact that Genie himself doesn't even know where these songs come from scares him to no end. Part of him wants to know what parts of his past he has forgotten, but another part knows that he would lose everything he'd grown to care for if he ever sought those memories out. So with the design for the Genie, I really struggled to create a convincing story for myself at first. Every design I do, I always write the story first, just because it makes the ideas of the character more solid in my mind. I've started doing that, and it seems to be creating more interesting results. Genie I struggled with, because I wanted to go with a little more of the magical aspect, but that didn't really fit the Star Wars universe unless he was a Jedi Force ghost or something like that. There was no real way to incorporate that, but then I had to incorporate the servant aspect of Genie. The fact that he has these goals of discovering a way to free himself from his bonds. There was a lot of different things I had to dissect with this character, and I wasn't finding anything at first. And then I did some research, and I discovered the proxy droid, which was first introduced in Star Wars The Force Unleashed, which was a video game starring Darth Vader's apprentice. The proxy droid itself was a kind of supporting cast member of that game. It kind of led to everything falling into place with this character. It allowed me to, with the protocol droid, have him help the Aladdin character I have more easily fit into a high society, because he's a protocol droid. He knows how to do high society's things, but it also allowed him to do the holograms and the big fireworks displays and the really fancy over-the-top things that Genie's able to do in the movies. So I'm really, really happy with this result. I kind of went overboard with the shiny metal look, but what can you do sometimes? So there is my Star Wars Genie, G3 and 13. Born on the planet Kefex, the Kifar child Aladdin Qasimi grew up an outcast among his own clan. Ancestry was an important aspect to his clansmen, and Aladdin, whose mother died in childbirth and whose father abandoned him at the age of 7, had no ties to any ancestry. His only friend was a young Trandoshan monkey, a Momong, that he found and named Abu. This left him to fend for himself and the monkey in a world that was against him. But those circumstances allowed Aladdin to learn the skills that he would need later in his life. He learned to feed and protect himself, sure, but he also learned to protect others like him. His circumstances instilled in him compassion for those who deserved it, and that often became his greatest strength. It also caused him a number of problems. When he turned 16, a ship crash landed nearby while Aladdin was out hunting in the Kifix wilderness. Always looking for adventure, Aladdin went to investigate the crashed ship and discovered it was a Republic transport cruiser. Most of the crew and passengers were dead on impact, and Aladdin noticed that most were of a wealthier caste. Making his way through the ship, Aladdin found his way to the ship's hold, where he found piles of Republic treasure for the taking. Among these was an old vibroblade, which he took as his own. He also found a crew member, badly injured, standing guard of the treasure, warning the young man to stay back and claiming he was a member of a pirate crew that attacked him. Surprising the guard, Aladdin tried to help him, but the guard did not survive. At this moment, the peddler's crew stormed the ship. Despite appearances, they did not shoot down the cruiser. The peddler's first rule was never to kill innocents. They simply pick up the pieces, more salvager than pirate. The peddler was impressed by Aladdin's compassion for the dying man, and was even more impressed by the boy's rough but promising fighting skills as another pirate crew arrived and tried to take the treasure for themselves. The peddler invited Aladdin along on their pirating, and Aladdin, with nothing else to lose, said yes. On missions, he was often paired with G3 and 13, as the protocol droid's understanding of other cultures and manners far superseded that of Aladdin, who barely knew anything of his own clan, let alone other cultures. Genie was a master of disguise, both in terms of clothing and his own holograms. The peddler has big plans to rob the treasure room of the Agrab Palace and steal a wealthy treasure map. Aladdin is key to his plan, a young man able to dress as a prince, and it is up to the genie to turn their young street rat into a prince. So for Aladdin's story, there really isn't that much different other than his basic origins. I mean, I made his origins very Star Wars-y, but I kept most of the stuff the same. His father's name, Qasim. I implemented the kind of elements of the 40 Thieves story that came into like the straight-to-DVD movies. I really wanted to keep Aladdin very rooted in his Disney story just because of these characters, he's the most recognizable. I mean, the movie's named after him. So obviously, I needed to keep him very recognizable in order to make this project work, I think. The others I could play around a little bit with more. Genie and Jafar, both of them are very different than their origins. But Aladdin, I really needed to keep grounded in that. A lot of Aladdin's interpretations in like Kingdom Hearts and in I think Disney Sorcerer's Arena, the new mobile game that came out, have him with a sword, and so I incorporated that in just because it seemed like it was a really interesting aspect. I gave him a chance to protect himself. Vibro swords have this machine that causes the blade and the metal to vibrate, so whenever it cuts something, that cut gets larger because it obviously is vibrating, and so the blade's moving a lot, and so the cut gets larger. Some are even made out of metal that is able to reflect lightsaber blades, which was kind of a fun aspect. Like, oh, Aladdin's fighting Jafar, and all of a sudden Jafar pulls out a lightsaber and tries to attack him, and all of a sudden he's just able to block that blade. It seemed like a cool idea, so I decided to go with it. The overall painting process for this one, the rendering, was kind of rushed for me. I was kind of hitting the deadline of when this video was supposed to come out, and so I was kind of rushing through it. It's not as good as it could be, but I'm actually rather happy with it. I mean, there were some things that just kind of clicked into place, and so I'm really happy with Aladdin's design overall. It feels like Aladdin, although it is very Star Wars'd up. Some of the color choices I'm not so sure about. I kind of combined the colors from the original animated version and the live action version, but overall, I think he turned out really well. So here's my Aladdin in Star Wars. Jasmina Shah, also known as Jasmine, is the princess to the Agrab throne, a smaller, mid-rim kingdom on an oasis desert planet. Based on one of the moons surrounding Orto Plutonia, a colony planet for the Pantoran Republic, Agrab has long been in conflict with its fellow Pantoran neighbors. Being a democracy, most of the Pantoran colonies look down on the monarchy of Agrab, and seek to control that sight. Agrab, to its credit, has weathered many assaults with few grievous wounds, but the death toll can sometimes be high. The current Sultan, Jasmina's father, lost his wife in one such assault. Fearing for his daughter's life, he made their fortress home a prison. While safe, Jasmine could no longer wander the city, seeing the people that so loved her royal family. Because the people did love Agrab and its sultanate, they chose to live there. It was their home, and for his part, the Sultan treated them as well as any ruler could. Not able to handle the seclusion and protection, though, alongside the subtle advances of her father's Zabrak's vizier Jafar, Jasmine manages to leave the fortress as often as she could. And one day, while out in the streets, her pocket got picked by a young street orphan. She chased him through the streets, managing to hunt him down, only for him to be stopped by a new arrival, Aladdin. Aladdin returns the woman's jeweled necklace, which she'd hidden in a pocket, having forgotten to take it off in the palace. Together, Aladdin and Jasmine wander the city together, finally arriving at the castle walls. Unbeknownst to Jasmine, Aladdin is actually casing the location for the heist, using Jasmine as a perfect cover for his investigation. Even so, a spark manages to form between the pair. Eventually, Jasmine returns to the palace, and the next day, the streets come alive with the arrival of a princely suitor, one Ali Ababwa, from a distant moon of Endor, and Jasmine is surprised to see it is actually Aladdin. Unlike the Disney movie, there's no magical trickery here to make her think it's someone else. Guessing at treachery, she isn't surprised when members of the royal party, actually members of the peddler's pirate crew, sneak into the treasure vault. She catches them, including Aladdin, in the act. However, while she is hurt by Aladdin's deception, she has greater plans. She convinces Aladdin to take her hostage to ensure safe passage from the palace, but really, she seeks to join the peddler's crew. Alongside her tusk cat, Raja, she wants to explore the grand galaxy beyond her little desert planet. With the help of some pirates, she might just do it. So for Jasmine Story, I really wanted to kind of push the themes that were present in the live-action movie. In that version, Naomi Scott plays a Jasmine that is much more self-sufficient, much stronger. Don't get me wrong, the animated version of Jasmine is incredibly strong-willed, but the version in the 2019 live-action movie was much more actively strong-willed. She pushed back against Jafar, she pushed back against the wrongdoings that her father was proposing, stuff like that. And so I really wanted to push that aspect in her story. You'll notice I gave her very deep blue skin. That was an aspect of the Star Wars lore. I wanted to make her feel like she was an alien of some kind. So I picked the Praetorians, which are all blue-skinned aliens. They show up in Clone Wars, which actually led to some fun aspects because I got to draw Raja as this giant tiger horse monster, which I thought was kind of fun. That kind of brings up an interesting talk too, because I had 3 different characters in this one that all come from cultures that have face tattoos. I didn't plan that, but Aladdin, the Kefex in this universe, Jasmine, the Praetorian, and Jafar, the Dathomirian Zabrak, all come from cultures that are known for having facial tattoos. And so I really had to push my design know-how. This time I was able to kind of pull from my art history knowledge. I went with some designs from kind of Indian artwork, because India was under Muslim control for a very long time. And the 2019 movie presented the court of Agrabah as being somewhat Indian in location, as Jasmine is seen doing some of the traditional dances of India in the movie. And so I think that is something really interesting that I wanted to incorporate. So I added some like lotus petal designs. It led to some interesting results, and I'm very, very happy with this one, especially getting to stretch my design chops. She does kind of look like Shiva, or depictions of Shiva with the blue skin and the gold tattoos, but overall I think she turned out really well. Jafar Ra-Nepres was born on the planet Dathomir, raised to be a warrior knight brother alongside his fellow Zabrak tribesmen. However, Jafar was never much of a warrior. He had a talent for it, but never the drive for the constant training which came along with knight brother life. In fact, he showed more of a talent and love of Dathomirian magics, the sole purview of the female Night Sisters, the acolytes of the dark side of the Force. The day it was revealed that Jafar could utilize these dark side focused powers, the Night Sisters sought him out, not to train him, but to kill him. The Night Brothers were meant to be slaves, and any who could stand against the sisters eventually would. Jafar managed to escape the conflict and fled off-world. With his growing dark side powers, Jafar, angry and defeated, thanks to the betrayal of his own people, Jafar traveled the galaxy, attempting to learn all he could of the dark side of the Force, dabbling in powers the Night Sisters could only dream of. Finally, he returned to Dathomir to showcase his new abilities to the Night Sisters and convince them to allow him entry into their ranks. But they rejected him again. While the Night Sisters used Dark Force abilities, they never succumbed to the darkness. Jafar, though, was a slave to it. So Jafar left again, never to return. He eventually found his way to a Grab, where after years of work, he ingratiated himself into the inner circle of the Sultan as his vizier. With his knowledge of war, bred by the Night Brothers, and his natural intuition through the Force, Jafar proved a valuable asset to the Sultan in his war against the Praetorian Republic. On the day of the peddler's heist, Jafar failed to retrieve Jasmine, taken hostage by the pirate crew. Rallying the Sultan's armies, Jafar and his pet Zandu, Iago, led the charge into deep space to retrieve her. But his goal wasn't only the rescue of the princess. During the heist, he witnessed a spectacular droid, long considered extinct. A prototype Sith training droid, only used within the ancient temples and palaces of Sith societies. That type of knowledge, that type of power, couldn't be ignored. Jafar would find the princess, yes. But his real goal was to find the G3 unit and take it for his own purposes. Jafar, admittedly, is the character design I'm least happy with this one. I think it turned out really cool, and I really enjoy, especially the color scheme I picked for him. I could definitely feel I was rushing, though, especially with some of the art choices. One of the wristbands, for example, I could have pushed a little bit further. Some of the elements just, they felt like Jafar, but I don't really feel like I captured him necessarily. Overall, I really enjoyed this illustration. I really enjoyed the character that I designed, but it does feel a little bit more rushed compared to the others. That's just my own pickiness at work. Artists are the worst critics of their own art. But overall, I'm especially happy with the story I developed for Jafar. I think the idea of him seeking out Sith intelligence and G3 being a droid that has Sith intelligence buried deep within him manages to call back to the Aladdin story without directly referencing it. There's some really interesting aspects there that I could really explore, and I'm really happy with that. Might have to play with his design a little bit, but overall, Jafar gets a thumbs up in my book. So here's my Jafar. So there we are. That is this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like down below. Check out my other videos and hit subscribe so you know when I get a video out. Also leave a comment down below. My question this week, who is your favorite Disney villain? Leave that down in the comments below. I'd love to start a conversation. That's my goal every week, just to build this community as much as I can, because I love doing this. It's a great motivation to get some work done, and also just pushing my boundaries in character design and otherwise. So I hope you enjoyed my nerdy little jaunt into Disney and Star Wars. Be safe, be kind, and have a little fun this week. Bye! Like I said, I really enjoy this one. I'm especially